Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. This is the last Shabad in this series of Gaudi compositions of Kabir Ji, the 71st. And it leaves us with some very important ways of living, especially in the light of negativity. How to deal with censure, reproof, slander, things that Kabir himself was subjected to. So let's recite the passage first. Gauri Nindau Nindau, moko log Nindau, Ninda jan ko khari pyari, Ninda baap Ninda mehtari rahao, Ninda hoye tabbe kunt jaiye, Naam padarth mane basaiye, Hriday suddh jo ninda hoye, Hamare kapde nindak toye, Ninda kare so hamara meet, Nindak maye hamara cheet, Nindak so jo ninda hoye, Hamara jeevan nindak lore, Ninda hamari prem pyar, Ninda hamara kare udhar, Jan Kabir ko ninda sar, Nindak duba hum utare par. So you see, Kabir talks about Nindo, moko log Nindo. Now this is commonly translated as slander. But we are not talking about personal slander, although there was plenty of that in Kabir's life. He was subjected to an onslaught, if you will, of abuse and criticism. But it was primarily for his advocacy of Naam, the way of Gurmat. Because you see, Ninda, the word Ninda, refers to an offense to the Vedas. And criticism of Kabir was rooted in this notion of Ninda. And what is that notion? It is the belief that independent human reasoning and direct experience, which, by the way, are the two pillars of Gurmat, cannot be regarded as a valid means of liberation, because this method does not admit the authority of the Vedas. So this began in the time of Shankara, who was the chief exponent of Vedanta. He, in fact, refuted the authority of the Buddhist, Jain, Sankhya, Yoga, and other traditions because they did not admit of the authority of the Vedas. And Shankara interpreted their attitude as an offense, which is Ninda. So the Ninda that Kabir is being subjected to is because he is offering a way, Gurmat, that offends the Vedas. But Kabir says, Ninda janko khari pyari. Now you see, now there are two layers to the second line that you have to understand. And Kabir is full of this, is multi-layered. Ninda janko khari pyari. Jan is servant. So you see, think about it. A servant in a household being criticized by the master. And Kabir is saying, I'm a servant to that absolute being. So criticism is very dear to me. And then he offers the reasons in the subsequent passages of why Ninda is dear to me. So he has used the word Ninda in multiple ways in just 2 lines. And let's see in the Rahao, he says, Ninda baap, Ninda mehtari. So censure is like the father and mother. What does he mean by that? Well, we all know that parents offer correctives to their children in the form that can be harsh in its criticism, but eventually serves the child. So Kabir here is giving us a lesson on how not to keep criticism or fault finding from others, abuse from others, to sink your ship. In other words, how to deal with negativity. And what Kabir is saying essentially is in Rahao, be a Gurmukh, become a Gurmukh. And a Gurmukh, absolutely self-reliant. The man who should eventually find his own day and land sufficient, and a woman too. Those who have no desire to be anything, but only themselves. Those who should not whine or apologize, do not duck, do not depreciate. Those who can see through the many disguises and debasements that come to them. So you see, that is the kind of absolutely self-reliant man that or woman that a Gurmukh is. And that is what Kabir is essentially advocating to us. So he's saying, never allow anyone, take no notice of anyone you don't respect. But those whom we respect, pay attention to their criticism. And now Kabir goes on to describe Ninda hoye tab Vaikuntha jaiye, naam padarat mane basaiye, hriday sudh jo ninda hoye, hamre kapde nindak toye. Disapproval. If there is disapproval, it can actually be the road to heaven. Because the one who speaks ill of me, Kabir says, is actually washing my dirty linen for me. Hamare kapde nindak toye. Because it causes me to address my shortcomings. Now that is the proper way to address negativity or criticism. And by doing that, Kabir says, my heart is cleansed. And when my heart is cleansed of my shortcomings, and when I lodge the treasure of self-knowledge in my mind, naam padartha mane vasaiye, well, that is the path to Vaikuntha. That is the way to Vaikuntha. So therefore, Ninda kare so hamara meet. The one who engages in calumny is actually my friend. He's actually my friend. Because I pay attention to what is said. Nindak mahe hamara cheet. We all pay attention to something negative said to us. We may resent it, but we do pay attention. So true criticism becomes the basis for self-improvement. Nindak so jo ninda ho raha. In other words, ho raha means to stop shortcomings, offenses, because I'm being made aware of. And he says, Hamara jivan nindak lo raha. As a matter of fact, he says, my lifestyle is such that the slanderer actually covets it. He wants to be like me because I've paid attention to my negativity, my shortcomings. Ninda Hamari prem pyar, ninda hamara kare udhar. Jan Kabir ko ninda sar, nindak duba ham utre par. Eventually, nindak duba, Kabir responds to what the initial offense was, which was offense to the Vedas. Kabir is now addressing those systems that prevailed and saying that people who rely on those systems eventually drown. In other words, they don't meet with success. Hum utre par. I, on the other hand, Kabir says, have crossed over the ocean of life because I rowed the boat of Shabad, of Naam. So Kabir says, I welcome criticism by being lovingly attentive to it. Ninda hamari prem pyar. Because it revitalizes and renews me. Ninda hamara kare udhar. So therefore, to the servant Kabir, Jan Kabir ko, reproof, reproach, censure is music to the ears. Ninda Sar. It is the essence that forms the basis of my self-knowledge. On that note, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.